Oh, the suburbs, the suburbs, the suburbs, okay? It is my shame on you. Shame on you. It is my firm belief that literally what we have to do to the suburbanites is straight up shame them. Especially you, soccer moms. Yeah, I'm talking to you, okay? So, if you know anything about electoral politics, you would know that what's really been screwing over the Republican Party as of late has not even so much been the inner city as much it has been the suburbs, and specifically the primarily white, college-educated, middle-class suburbs, right? This is the demographic group that you've seen shifting massively to the left, screwed the GOP in a lot of elections in both 2018 and 2020, and I'm going to be honest, it is so painful for me to watch. Like, it hits me really at home. And that's not just because I grew up in what can kind of be considered to be a suburb.
Learn how to ride a bike before you ride one with me. God.
But it's really because I truly love and appreciate the idea of the American suburb, and I absolutely cherish what it represents, which is exactly why it really hits home when I watch the suburbs commit what is quite literally political suicide against themselves. So this is a message to you. Shame on you. Here's what you're missing. Here's what you need to understand, stupid woke suburbanite. Okay. I would like to start this video by pointing out that the very idea and concept of the American suburb is an inherently conservative one, okay? And not only is it just a conservative concept, it is a concept I would argue cannot even exist under a liberal order, okay? Because what is the suburb, and what has the suburb always been throughout American history other than a calm, quiet, and safe place where you can raise your family. Keep in mind your family, not multiple families in like a multi-generational complex or whatever, but your family in your home that you own, not BlackRock, but you own, okay? And you can raise that family in peace and stability and quiet, away from the chaos and the crime and the dangers that plague the inner city. That's what the American suburb is. Sound kind of conservative to you? Sound kind of generically, Republican campaign talking point to you? It should, because it is. Because it is. The suburb itself was not always here. It was a cultural invention of the 1950s. Oh boy, that decade that the conservatives always want to return to, and the decade that is arguably the most symbolically, at least, conservative decade in American history. Yeah, well, that's when the American suburb was created. See that? See that? This is what's often referred to by crazy left-wing historians who are just literally coping and full of white guilt as white flight. That's what they call it. Okay, but whatever. The suburb was basically created after World War II, when all of these young families started to move out of that kind of chaos and noise of the inner city into what is now understood to be the suburb. Okay, so the suburb itself was invented in the 1950s. The suburb itself is a place where nuclear families, white picket fences, green grass lawns, and the middle class thrive. That's who owns the suburbs. That's who the suburbs belong to. So let me ask the question again. What could possibly be more symbolically conservative than the American suburb in its very existence itself? Very few to no such cases exist. All about the family, all centered around the family, right? The irony, of course, is that the suburbs particularly seem to hate Trump and populism the most, right? I see the great irony in this, because it is actually the neocons of the past few decades who really, I would argue, have basically cared less for the well-being of those suburban families, of the nuclear family, and of the middle class. Meanwhile, on the other hand, so those are the Republicans that the suburbs seem to be fine with. Meanwhile, on the other hand, it is the Trump revolution conservatives, right? It is people like me. It is people like Tucker Carlson, the APU. What do we always say? We always say that it is strong families and a strong middle class, not the GDP growth, not corporate profit, but rather the strength of our families that builds the backbone of America and determines the health of American society. You would think, right? One would think our message would resonate the most with the American suburb. We're all about the family. We're all about the ability to own homes and raise a family in peace, in stability, in the traditional way that your grandparents did, right? Meanwhile, our ruling class, the globalists, the political establishment that the suburbs literally continue to shill for and continue to vote for and prefer in politics, literally hates the suburb. Okay? They do not believe that the suburb is like, something great that America has to offer and ultimately the greatest manifestation of the American dream. No, to them, to the globalists, to the post-liberals specifically, the suburbs represent racist, dark relics of a dark past best left forgotten. That's what the suburb is to them. And I think they're pretty open about this. They do not believe in the suburb. They do not believe in the types of families and the types of homes that preside in the suburb. And they hate the suburban way of life. They hate everything that the suburb represents. And even worse, their big problem with the suburb is that it's too family friendly. It is too preferable for traditional families. And quite frankly, to them, it's also too white. Okay, that's really what they believe the suburb is. And so, when are the suburbs going to recognize this? The globalists do not see the suburbs in that way. What they want for the suburbs is new public housing complexes, right? That's what they see. They see them as prime places to put public housing and these like multi-family crazy housing complexes, and to allow BlackRock to buy up a bunch of homes and make them into a bunch of rental homes, right? That is their vision of the suburbs. Their vision of the suburbs are places where instead of just keeping things nice and clean the way they are, let's import millions and millions of third world migrants and a bunch of inner city criminals into the suburbs. That's what they believe. That's what they want for the suburbs. It is so obvious that this is what they want as well. They want the suburbs to exist as an environment, and they want the suburbanites to be the guinea pigs in this great grand experiment in diversity, quote unquote. They're already doing stuff like this, So you would think that logically, this would be the cause of extreme anger and rebellion from suburban America. They would be freaking pissed at this. You would think that after everything we saw in 2020, the suburbanites would say, this is ridiculous. Screw these post-liberals. I'm voting for Trump. I'm voting for the populists. Instead, we see like the exact opposite of that. Especially, as they say, among suburban moms, among suburban women. Which I think even just more adds to the great irony of this entire situation. Because you would think, what do suburban moms value above anything else? It's the safety and the well-being of their children and of their family, okay? And you would think that the clear and present threat of not being able to send their children to safe schools, on safe streets, in safe neighborhoods, in safe communities, would trigger like that vicious, angry mom response from every suburban mom. Shot! Nice Tim! You would think that's what you would see, right? You would think that you would see suburban moms not just voting for Trump, but storming into walking peacefully. Let me clarify. Walking peacefully into a bunch of school board meetings and causing a big scene and calling it, like, you would think that's what you see from the suburban moms. And instead, the suburban moms now make up one of America's most liberal and fundamentally anti-populist voting blocs. So it's just so ironic, isn't it? Instead of hating the American regime that wants to destroy the suburbs and the suburban way of life the most, the suburbanites instead shill for the American regime. I don't understand why. Actually, I do understand it. I think to them it's kind of a status thing, right? That's kind of the one benefit for the Democrats into really becoming now, symbolically the party of the elite. Now these, especially the middle class, upper middle class suburbanites, now they see it as a status symbol that they vote Democrat. But understand this, soccer mom, okay? The globalist elite in power, they're not going to let you in, okay? They're not inviting you to the Bohemian Grove cookout, okay? It's not happening. So stop pretending like it is and defend yourself. Vote in self-defense. That's what we need. And that's the great tragedy of the entire situation, right? As the elites eroded away, at one of America's most sacred places, its suburbs. Those who were being affected by all of this didn't even try to stop it. Instead, they cheered it on. and they labeled the populists who were just fundamentally trying to save the suburbs and keep the suburbs great, right? They called them divisive and racist and all this stuff, See, the working class gets it, right? The working class has seen what the transnational global elite has done to them, okay? They know. They've lost the jobs. They see what it's done to their towns. But the suburb is not really far behind the curve. I mean, the transnational elite don't like the suburb either. You can already see them coming for the suburbs, right? Look at Buckhead, Atlanta. You might have seen that story on Tucker Carlson a few weeks ago that this is kind of like the very wealthy suburb in Atlanta that wants to now secede from the city because basically what Atlanta is doing is allowing all this crime and violence to really pour into that community. And at first I was like, this sucks. They're destroying the suburb. I feel so bad. But then you look at the voting demographics of Buckhead, Atlanta, and this is a place that moved to the left in 2020. Oh, big surprise, right? Shame on you, suburbs. You are literally doing the bidding of your enemies, all right? And here's the deal, soon there will be no going back. If the suburbs don't correct course fast, 10 or 20 years from now, the American suburb as we used to know it will no longer exist. Because you're not going to be able to get rid of these public housing complexes and these multi-family freaking ugly things, it's just not gonna happen. Like they will have been built by then, and there's nothing you can do about it. And your property value is gonna suck, and your kids are gonna be in freaking dangerous schools where all the essays are like, just robbing him of his lunch. That's the future, and you voted for it. Boom. All right. And the great tragedy of it is a lot of American families will be without any place where they can live safely in peace and raise their traditional families. And that's exactly what the globalists want for the future of America. And it's just so sad to watch, You would think the suburb would be the most conservative place in America. They really should be the driving force behind the Trump revolution. And instead, very sad to watch. Shame on you. Anyways, guys, that'll wrap up this video. Those are basically my thoughts on the suburbs, okay? I do like the suburb. I like what the suburb represents. But that's exactly why their politics are so brain dead right now. I just don't get it. So shame on you. Anyways, guys, I know the upload schedule is going to be a little bit slower this week. I am traveling the entire week, basically, trying to get that content out for you. Hope you enjoyed. But yeah, until next time, Alpha Moves Only. Hey guys, hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, be sure to like and subscribe, and be sure to click some of the stuff on my left for some more awesome content. Also, to follow me on social media, check out my podcast, and some more awesome stuff, be sure to check out the links down in my description. All right? Peace.